Hello, and this is going to be a tutorial on how to create the text effect like this word Friday. It's this incredible, amazing, glowing 3D text effect, and I'm going to do a step-by-step using Photoshop. By the end of this video, you are going to know how to layer this with Bevel and Emboss, gradient overlay, multiple drop shadows to achieve this bold, dimensional look for a perfect, high-impact design. So let's get started. I'm going to start by creating a new document. I'm just going to do like 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. I put my background as black just so that we can fully see this effect on here. And I'm going to click create. I am going to start by creating just a simple text layer. I press T for my text and I'm just going to write the word Photoshop on it. Now you can use any font for this. I'm using Formula Condensed, and I'm gonna bring it up to around 40 points, just so that we have something like nice and large in the middle. And you'll notice I'm starting off with this like neon color over here, but I'm going to be adding a lot of different parts to it. The neon is hardly gonna show at the end, but it is gonna be there, and it's great for like increasing the drama of some of our effects that are on there. So let's get started. Now that I have my layer, the first effect that I'm going to do is actually going to be a bevel and emboss. I'm going to go to my effects panel and I'm going to click bevel and emboss. And I'm using an inner bevel for this with the technique of smooth. And I am also doing my direction of up instead of down, because down punches it in, up brings it out and gives it like this 3D look to it. My size is going to be 2 pixels because I'm looking for something like small and precise with it. So that's why I'm going to go to 2 pixels. And I don't want it softened at all. I'm not looking for something that's like a glowing edge. So I'm bringing my softening all the way down. For my angle, I'm going to go to like just the angle that I'm trying to get my lighting to come onto. So it's going to end up being like at around 150. And my altitude, which is how the light source, where it's coming from, I'm gonna set my altitude to something like 30 right now. It's just weird how far the light is hitting it on. And we won't see a difference in it right now, but as I stack different effects, we are going to see it a little bit more. My highlight mode, you'll notice that I have it set onto screen and my opacity is 100. Again, like even if I put it on normal right now, I'm not going to see much of a difference, but this is going to be for the stacking purposes so that I'll be able to see different effects through it. My shadow mode is on multiply and I drop my opacity from 100 to around 83, give or take. And that's also going to be, so that when I have different drop shadows underneath it, I can have a difference and I can see through them. I can look over here when I zoom into it. I can see if I turn on and off my bevel and emboss look, I can see it pop on and pop off. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add like a fairly thin stroke to enhance the look of this text against the multiply drop shadow effects that we're going to add to it. I'm going to go back into my effects panel and I'm going to turn on a stroke. Now for the color of my stroke, I'm going to take the color of my font, of my text that I have over here, and I'm really just going to add like 2 black. So I'm going to make it just a little bit darker than the font that I have. I'm going to click OK. And I'm also going to move my stroke down. I want it like fairly thin. So I'm going to do something like 3 pixels and I'm going to position it on the inside so that I'm really helping to give that like pure sharpness to the words that I have over here. And I'm going to keep my blend mode on normal. I'm going to keep my opacity on 100%. And this is just gonna like help my text pop out a little bit more against the edge. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to start with a gradient overlay. The gradient overlay is gonna give us like a really smooth transition from the text across the colors of the text and it'll help us create that like glow metallic look to it. So I'm going to turn on, I'm staying in my layers panel, and I'm going to turn on my gradient my gradient overlay effect. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to get it, now the standard gradient overlay that I have over here is not what I'm going to keep onto it. We're going to select different blue colors to give it this full effect that I want. I can show you in my original on my postcard over here where I have my gradient overlay. I have this like going from a dark blue to a light blue. I can either go and like copy and take these exact colors that I want, or within my other file, I can just select my own colors for it. So I'm going to go to my gradient overlay, and I'm going to have like a dark blue go to a little bit of a lighter blue. I'm going to grab from here, and then I'm going to bring it down until I find a blue that I want. I can obviously change it at any point that I want. Right now the angle is going to the side. I'm actually going to bring the angle up to about 90 degrees just so I get this like going from bottom to top look to it. And I'm also going to do like a linear style because I want it to go the smooth transition from bottom to top. I don't want it to be on hard light right now. I actually want it to be on normal. So maybe I'm going to bring down my blue, make it a little bit lighter. Right here, we can get this blue. And again, like as I'm working through this file, if I'd like to change it at any point, I absolutely can. I'm looking for like this neon look at the end of it. So I'm not sure if I'll be 100% satisfied with the color of this right now. I can, change my mind on that a little bit later. And then we're going to start adding some drop shadows. Now, the way I like to stack my drop shadows is I like to start from the bottom one up. This way I can like build from behind and go up, but there's really no correct way to do it. It's a matter of finding what works for you the best and what doesn't. Now, I know that I'm going to have a lot of drop shadows. The way I add a drop shadow here, I can just like delete the extras over here. I add drop shadows by clicking the plus or by going to effect and doing a drop shadow and just adding another drop shadow. I'm going to start off and like add 5 or 6 drop shadows to it so that I have all of my drop shadow layers. And I'm going to start at my bottom one that I want to create. Now, the first one that I'm going to create is going to be like a linear burn drop shadow. So I'm going to go to the blend mode of linear burn, and I'm going to bring my opacity up to 100. And I'm going to do my angle at like, I'm going to start off now, any angle that you start off by, right? So I'm going to like start off around over here, following the original light source that I found and the gradient source that I found. And I'll keep mine, all of my angles that I do, I'll keep them starting from where I started and move them either to the right or to the left, depending on what angle I'm trying to do. But it really doesn't matter where you start your angles from. I am turning off global lights because with these drop shadows, I'm really trying to manipulate them so that it looks like a 3D object to it. So I'm just going to start off with, this is the direction that I selected because this is where I'm going to try to make it pop out from. But again, when you are playing around with it, feel free to play around anywhere that you want. I am going to have my distance be at like 18 pixels. What I'm actually going to do before I continue going is I'm going to turn off my background so that you see a little bit of what I'm doing with the drop shadows. I'm just creating this baseline for where I'm going to put some things between. Like I'm going to want this to like really help it pop out of the background. Again, as we go through the steps, things are going to start making a little bit more sense. The size of 21 that I selected over here is like for this diffused look to it. My contour for it is going to be like a linear contour, just a regular contour for it. I'm going to put a little bit of noise to it, right? And again, we'll see the noise like as we go to it. I'm really trying to get like a natural lighting behind it. I'm trying to get some real depth over here. And then I'm going to go on and add, as soon as this drop shadow is done, I'm going to go and add another drop shadow to it. This drop shadow is like a close, dark drop shadow. So what I'm going to do to this is, again, I'm going to keep my blend mode on normal for it. I am going to keep my opacity up at 100 for it. For my angle now, I'm going to go to like a 90 degrees angle. And this is because as I'm stacking my layers and my drop shadows, I'm putting them in different locations so that I can get that effect of like having a bunch of things open at once. I'm going to increase my distance than my last one, right? So my last one was at 3. This one I'm going to put at 7. I'm going to keep my spread at 0, and I'm going to put my size at 0 pixels. What I see that I got over here is that like this shadow over here, and the reason why we see this shadow so much is because it pops up against the last drop shadow that we put. I'm going to keep my contour the same, and I'm not going to put any noise over here. I don't want any noise like I had for my last one because I'm trying to get like a very, very solid look to it. And so that would be my second drop shadow. Now I'm going to turn back on, after I clicked OK, I'm going to turn back on my drop shadows, and I'm going to, my background, I'm going to see if anything's missing. I can see from over here that really I don't see my drop shadows at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to like play around with the colors in both my drop shadows to try to get it to have like I'm keeping it within this blue family, but I'm putting it at like within like a darker and deeper blue to it so that I can see them pop up against my black. Obviously, if I'm using a different color background, then I want to have drop shadows that are going to be maybe a little bit of a different color. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go on and create a third drop shadow to it. And this drop shadow that I'm going to put on, I'm going to put, again, one step higher. And this one is going to be like a normal drop shadow. So my blend mode for it is going to be normal. My angle for it is going to be a little bit different than my last angle. So last time I did, I think, a 90-degree angle. I'm just going to move it over a little bit. So we'll do like 94-degree angle. I am going to, again, go to like this blue color that I had over here, right? So I'm going to go to like very similar color, but move it over a little bit. This way I can actually see the color that's going on over here. I'm going to increase the distance a little bit because when you increase a distance of something that's between something else, then I'm adding like even a pop more of depth to it. I'm going to put my spread again down to 0, and I'm going to put my size again down to 0. So that when I have, if I'm going to like go out of this over here, and I'm going to zoom in for you to fully see it. I know this is like getting pixely, but if I take off this inside drop shadow, right, I can put on and off these separate drop shadows, and because it's up inside of it and I had more depth, like you can see the layers start to stack, the drop shadows start to stack. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add an additional drop shadow. And this next drop shadow is also going to be another normal drop shadow. I'm actually going to start by like just plussing this one so I get an exact copy of this. And I'm just going to change some things around. Like instead of 94, let's make it 95, right? And then I'll keep it on normal, the blend on normal. And this distance, instead of 11, let's make it 12 so that we have like a little bit of an additional distance to it. And I'll do my spread at 0 and my size at 0, keeping all of that stuff exactly the same. And then we're going to repeat this process and we're going to do the exact same thing again. So I'm going to make a copy of this drop shadow, right? And I'm going to go to over here and we'll increase it. So like our angle was 94, then 95. So now we're going to go with 97. Our distance was 12. So let's go up to 14. We're still going to keep our spread and our size at 0. And then we're going to repeat this process again, except that this next one, we're going to give it an overlay effect. So I'm clicking plus again. Instead of doing a normal drop shadow, I am going to give it an overlay effect, which is going to blend my drop shadows that I had a little bit. I'm going to go to an angle, like this time I'm really going to increase the angle, and I'm going to go to 104. Okay, and I'm going to put my distance back, like let's lessen the distance a little bit. We'll go back to 12, and I'm going to give it a size of 5. And the reason why I'm giving my size 5 is because I want to, for this drop shadow specifically, like help it blend in with the other effects that we had. Because right now we can see these like exact lines that we have. I want to sort of help like blend it together. So that is what my next drop shadow is going to be. I'm also gonna decrease the coloring just a little bit. And I am going to increase my opacity way up closer. I'm not going to put it at 100%, but I'm going to have it at like 92%. And this is going to help smooth it out a little bit. Let's put the color back. Let's see what color we like. Okay, I think that this color is fine. Maybe I'll change it around a little bit. And now I'm going to look back at my other drop shadows that I had, right? And I'm going to see like what happens when I increase this one. So you see how it was decreased. If I increase this one and I increase these opacities, now I'm getting like a little closer to the style that I was looking for by putting it up a bit. This one might need to be increased too. I think that is now a lot closer to where we're trying to get to. So let's keep going. I might again go in and change some of them, but we are gonna put on another drop shadow. And this drop shadow that we have here, I'm just gonna copy this one again. And I'm trying to like really increase the overlay effect so that I can have another layer for it as well, like another spot for it. But I'm gonna put my opacity down, and I'll make this one like just a wee bit darker for my overlay effect. Okay, so now when I look at it, I see that I'm really close to where I'm trying to get to, but I do have this like extra drop shadow that I must not have done properly, or like, well, you know, like there's on the letters that are hard edge letters, like the H, it's giving me this extra line that I'm not super thrilled about. So to find where that line is, I'm just toggling on and off my drop shadows until I find, oh, this one is giving me that hard line. And so what I'm going to try to do is maybe I'll turn this into a multiply instead of a regular shadow. Instead of normal, this way I get like rid of that hard line that I don't want to it. And that is how I created this 3D effect. And I can go in at any time and be like, you know what, my gradient overlay, this one is like a little too strong. What happens if I tone down this color a lot, right? And I add some deeper hues to this color. Now it pops out against my shadow a lot more. And then once I do that, now I might want to go and like edit my other shadows maybe and make them to be a little darker or a little lighter, depending really on the look that I'm going for within my shadows that I'm trying to make. So you can really like, once you know the basics of how to stack it and what to put in between it, then you can really, really manipulate it and create it in any way, shape, or form that you want to. I hope this helps, and I hope that you can go and create something super cool for either just to test this out and play around with it, or for your own postcard or design that you're trying to create.